Hey everyone, welcome to this second comedy edition of Live in the Sunroom. Today on the show, veteran stand-up comic Carlos Mencia. Once one of the hottest comics in the country, Carlos continues to appear in comedy clubs across the country, and he is here performing in El Paso at the Comic Strip this weekend. We talked to Carlos about the craft of stand-up and why he still loves performing. Carlos, tell me, what's on your mind these days?
You know what's funny, man? I've been doing this so long that you get to places in your career where you think, as a stand-up, all right, I'm not going to be inspired. You know, there's the wanting to talk about whatever's going on is going to go away, and it's just going to become an act. It's never happened for me. I keep getting excited about talking about things that I see, especially when everybody knows what you're talking about. If you're talking about Hillary, you're talking about Trump, you're talking about, I mean, we're at a time where everybody knows that stuff. And so it actually makes it easier for me to do what I do, because I don't have to connect 2, 3, 4 dots to get them on the same page.
Which I've seen you do.
Correct. I can literally just go, boom, and they're like, oh, I heard that. And then it's just like, let's get on this roller coaster together.
What about the people in Mexico that need help? Oh, yeah, I call those people my lazy family that didn't want to come on the trip.
Intent is missing as well in this country. Like, what is the intent? A lot of that is just gone and astray, and it's been replaced with, I was in Eugene, Oregon, and they have safe place comedy. That's not, the court jester was born not to make fun of the king, but to point out truths to the king in a way that were palatable, and to allow the king to make decisions that might not have been the appropriate or inappropriate responses to whatever was going on, and a court jester would make it funny, and everybody in the court laughed. You know, this guy should be beheaded. You know, and the court jester knew that didn't really deserve a beheading, but according to the law, it should have, and technically, and he was the one that could be like, do we really want to cut this guy's head off? I mean, look how ugly it is. He's right, just pay the fine. That's who we were, and we still are. We're still the truth tellers. We're still the ones that can get away with talking about any of that stuff. I can go up on stage and talk about Hillary Clinton in a negative way and Trump in a negative way, and have both sides laughing at each other without it being a divisive issue. Well, that doesn't happen.
Well, I wanted to ask you this. I mean, at what point do you go, go from being someone who you were funny? I've heard interviews where you said, I was a funny guy. I went up on stage. I had a joke book. At what point do you go from being someone who's funny to saying, I want to challenge people's sensibilities?
But I didn't do that on purpose.
It wasn't. Okay, it was organic?
I grew up in a real world. Okay, I'll give you an example. I do a joke where I say, be in the moment, because when you're not in the moment, you know what happens? Your kid ends up in a gorilla habitat. And it starts off this whole thing. But my whole thing about that is the simplicity of this. There's a child that's not afraid of a gorilla. It's not normal. That shouldn't be. A child should be afraid of a gorilla. I'm afraid of a gorilla. I mean, if we were in the Coliseum and it was completely sold out, and I said, oh my God, there's a gorilla on the loose, and a gorilla ran out, not one person would run toward that beast. And yet, this child wasn't afraid. And it's because this parent didn't tell them, you should be afraid. That's an animal that can kill you. And to me, there's nothing edgy about that. And there's nothing edgy about this truth as well. Every parent that I know of that's not the best parent, have sympathy for the parents of that kid. All the parents that I know that are good parents have none. They're like, how does your kid end up in a gorilla habitat? I don't understand that. The not good parents are like, well, you can't blame the kid, because sometimes your kids get away from you. It's like, what? No. And to me, somebody will say, wow, that's edgy. I'm like, no, that's just real. There's nothing edgy about that, and then I blame uber liberals for the death of that animal. Because when parents who acknowledge we're not good parents and they put their kids on a leash, I looked at it as a good thing, personally. Right? I said, here parents were basically saying, we can't watch our kids in public. So we're going to put a leash on them to make sure they don't get out of a specific range. Yeah. I thought, good for you, and thank you. Who opposed it? Uber sensitive ultra liberals, right? Who were like, you can't do that to a child. That's a child. Why would you put a child on a leash? Well, now it's so that they don't end up in a gorilla habitat. Now we know the answer to your stupid question. Better to hang like a piñata than fall all the way down. There you go. This is how it happened. So to me, it's just about connecting those dots and making it funny, but it's not edgy. It's not crazy. It's, I said on stage that I wish illegal immigrants, whatever, paisas, I don't care it doesn't matter what the wording is, that those people hid or went back to Mexico for 2 weeks. Because we don't comprehend in this country what 11 to 12 million people is. That's about 3/4 of the state of Texas or something like that. That's a tremendous amount of people throughout the country. Yeah. And there are a lot of people, like here, there are a lot of people that they work in downtown building somewhere in El Paso. They go, they work, they leave, it's dirty. They come back in the morning, it's clean. There's not a magical American janitor fairy that's doing this work. Right? And so, I would love this truth to happen. They're gone, right? All the illegal immigrants are gone. And some Americans are like, yes, this is the real America. This is all we wanted. They can come back, but legally. Not understanding that the legal process of getting into this country takes years. So we're gonna go to our favorite Italian restaurant, but it's gonna be closed because they thought that their cook was actually Italian. They thought that guy was Luigi when it's Luis. Yeah. So you want to go to Carino's? You can go to Carino's and see how many Italians are actually making your pasta. And by the way, this isn't an El Paso thing. This is everywhere I go. One of the best restaurants I eat at is an Italian place in Birmingham, Alabama. All the cooks, every single one, as soon as I get there. Oye, Carlos, pues qué, una camisa, pues qué pasó? You know what I mean? And the guy from Central America, a little more of a Carlos fan because he knows I'm from Honduras. So he's like, whoa, hey, oye, man, para la gente, Carlos, qué lindo. You know what I mean? And everybody's going, what the hell is going on? I'm like, who did you think was making this?
Yeah, Giuseppe.
Exactly. Yeah, Giuseppe's in the back. Oh, I cannot cook today. There was an earthquake. Oh, it was so big. I have, Yeah. No, it doesn't work that way. And so, in that respect, right? Again, but on the other hand, I'm also going to make fun of the immigrant who gets mad that he gets treated like an immigrant.
I've seen that bit where you do. That's very funny.
Because it's your fault. You're wearing a Mexican shirt in the United States of America when we're playing Mexico. You're protesting that you want rights holding a Mexican flag. What part of that do you not understand is going to make people angry? I don't get that. I would never come into your house and go, my mother's cooking is better than yours. I would just be grateful that you made some meals. And so there's always somebody to talk about in an authentic way. The problem is authenticity now is seen as verbose and angry because it's connected to somebody like Trump, where he says stuff like that. I don't say stuff like that. I say stuff that's real and genuine. Do I use a vernacular that sometimes might be a little on the edge for some people? Yeah. But it's a vernacular that I grew up with and I still exist in. When that goes away, then I'll stop doing it. I'm not going to be the comedian still saying colored people instead of African Americans in the 2000s. I'm not going to be that way. But everything I say now is the way people talk, and not in a hateful way. I'm talking about in a loving way. So when I'm in the South and we talk to each other in that language, whatever they're using. I want to make them comfortable. As long as the intent is good, I'm okay with that. Once it goes past that, then I distance myself. And that happens very rarely. I very rarely ever met really racist people. Just people that are like angry or frustrated or trying to blame somebody for their lot in life. Yeah. I've seen that. But like real racism, it very rarely happens.
How interesting that you, like, as a performer, you are watching for that synapse to happen. And I would think that one of the things that's really amazing for comics is when you get that physical, you get a reaction from someone, you get laughter that elicits a physical response from a human being. Mm-hmm. But then you're looking beyond that too. You're looking at people making connections in their own lives and their own mentalities.
Well, yeah, because that tells me where I can go with the next joke or the next premise. If you're resistant, then I have to do a resistant, friendly joke to bring you over to, because from an emotional standpoint, I need you to be, I'm gonna go from 1 to 1,000, right, in a performance. Okay. It's gonna go 1, 2, 3, it's gonna progress. But sometimes, in order to get to 5, I gotta go 4, 4, 4, and then they go, oh, okay, 5.
Got it.
It's gonna happen.
So you're talking about the craft there, aren't you?
Yeah, sure, of course, because there's an emotional level to what we do. Yeah. And not everybody buys into it for the entirety of a show. You buy into it in pieces, especially when you do the type of comedy that I do. That's not a shtick. Mm-hmm. So when you're a comedian and you're edgy and you have a shtick, that's okay, because people just grant you the shtick license, so to speak, and you can go because they know it's not real. So you take a guy like Anthony Jeselnik, right, he's got the shtick, his thing, his clown suit is I'm edgy and I'm crazy and I'm gonna offend you. Yeah. So people don't get offended because they know he's just, that's it, that's what he does. That's not me. So I can be construed as offensive because it's not a shtick, or at least it doesn't come off that way. Yeah. It's very conversational. And so I have to reel them in sometimes. Whereas to performers like that, Amy Schumer, they don't have to do stuff like that because it comes with the package. And they go, oh, they're joking. Yeah. With Carlos, they're like, no, he's talking about real stuff. He's not joking, even though I am.
Do you still get that same, I mean, are you still in love with the craft? I mean, you're describing it, in such detail. You've been doing it for so long. Is that still something that you just still need and get energy from?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I understand the fight now. Okay? When I was younger, I thought I could change the world. Now I realize that it's more of the push and pull, right? So from the dawn of not even civilization, so we were nomads. It was very basic and it was very simple. You kill, you eat, you live. You survive, you kill, you eat, you live. It was very basic. And then we became a community. And the problem became, what do we do with that idiot that can't hunt? That has been the eternal problem for mankind since we became this. And it hasn't been any different. So my fight of ignorance, and I'm not putting myself anywhere near this, but I can't speak of mediocre people because it wouldn't apply. So my fight is Plato's fight, is Socrates, Aristotle, all of those people who fought mediocrity in their way. I do the same thing. I fight intellectual mediocrity in the same way through comedy. Now, the predominant majority of people that see me perform, they don't see that layer. And that's okay.
Yeah.
Because that's not what I'm there to do. I'm there to make you laugh.
Sure.
So when people come and they go, you're the funniest, blah, blah, blah. Thank you. There is, every once in a while though, somebody kind of goes, I saw it. I saw that. So you saw what? I saw it. You said this and you said that. This is what you wanted them. That's brilliant. Just brilliant. That's what, those are the moments that make me go, okay, that's awesome. I got one person.
Yeah.
And you go, good, that's great, good. You know.
God, so you're slugging it out, really, like what you're talking about.
But we have.
Yeah.
I mean, it's what we do.
Yeah.
But it hasn't. And I'm not gonna change it. I'm just maintaining a balance, and that is okay with me. So I'm okay with it now because I know what it is. But it hasn't always been that case. I thought, wow, we can do it. It just, there's a pipeline that just, you know. And in America, it's worst because, as I said, we have laws that other countries don't have to protect people from themselves.
Yeah.
Other countries don't have that. I mean, there's a little fence. It's about 2.5 feet tall. If you ever go to the edge of the Grand Canyon, that stops you from going to the edge. And I'm looking at this fence going, this is the Grand Canyon. It is the biggest crack on the planet.
Right.
You can see it from the moon with the naked eye. Is this necessary? Who falls over the edge of the Grand Canyon and goes, they should have put a fence? What? You didn't see that giant crack? And so I mean, I saw a sign in a parking lot that said, don't leave your child in the car when it's hot. And I'm going, who needs this? You know, and I don't want to be cheesy, right? So here's where comics sometimes lose credibility when we go to a place of, and you know, why do they make you put the seatbelt on the airplane? I mean, yeah, it's a version of what I'm talking about, but I'm talking about, I'm driving around Texas and it says click it or ticket, and I'm going, okay, why are we asking adults to wear seatbelts? If you're stupid enough to drive 95 on the 10, and in your mind you're like, if we crash, I'm gonna hold on real tight. Why are we saving these people?
Right.
And then I go, okay, we're gonna save them. So what's the next step? And the next step to me is, if they knew their limitations, they would be happier. We are the richest country in the world and the unhappiest of all industrialized nations. So to me, the American dream is this. If you never own a home, you have an okay job, you raise your kids in an apartment, and they grow up with the ability to, even with debt, go to a university and graduate and, you know, become a part of the middle class, that is better than 90-something% or 90-something% of all of the rest of the world. And that to me is, you know, I remember I grew up in the projects and I took pictures of the projects, which here are like, ugh. I was in Honduras. They thought I lived in the most amazing place ever. They looked at it completely differently. And part of the reason why I love coming to El Paso is because this is one city that never loses perspective. It is the safest city in the world, juxtaposed with the second or third most violent city in the world. And that doesn't get lost. What I love about El Paso is that whenever you start taking America for granted, you get on the 10, you look to one side, and there's UTEP, and these amazing, magnificent buildings, and a stadium carved into a mountain, and you see the other side, and you go, oh, now I remember why I'm supposed to be happy, because I'm not there. And that's a great insight to have that the majority of America doesn't have. because they don't see that.
Yeah, like a gratitude journal that's visible right in front of you, right?
Right. That's why I love Immigrants. Immigrants never complain about America. Americans complain about America. Because somebody that came here from Nicaragua, Venezuela, Colombia, Mexico, they see this and they go, this is the greatest thing ever in the history of the world. But we go like, you don't understand, it's so hot, it was 108 and I got in my car and then I was wearing shorts and I didn't know and I got a little burn like that on my leg and then I got up and then it takes so long, oh my God. I mean, are you serious?
So bad or whatever.
Right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're the quintessential example, right, of an immigrant success story. And I mean, I remember seeing you were at the Abraham Chavez and it was like, you were doing it, and you did a really funny bit on Elian Gonzalez.
Yeah,
and I mean, it was like right in the news that week.
Right.
And then you did a really funny bit. I remember, and you like kicked the stool, and
I remember.
and I mean that was 16 years ago. What a ride it's been for you, right, Carlos? I mean, you've done it all, man, ups and downs and everything.
I have been one of the most loved comedians, and then followed by, I think still at the time, on the internet anyway, just from a logistical standpoint, if you look at the algorithms and all that,
Sure.
the most hated comedian at the same time. You realize that, you only have control of what you do, of who you are, and, you're either grateful or not. I'm grateful because there was a point in time where I got so much hate from my community that there were homicidal and suicidal thoughts. There were times where I wanted to get a gun and go to a comedy club and shoot a bunch of comedians. Because think about the way we're talking about comedy, the way I break it down, the way I see it, the nuances of it, how it's a science for me as much as it's an art form. Mm-hmm. And to have somebody say that this thing that I love, this creation, isn't real because I stole somebody's joke, and for people to just believe that. I mean, people that don't know me, and it's so difficult, or it was at the time, because it's funny now. Where was I? Well, I was somewhere in America, and I get to this radio station and these DJs go, "We're really sorry, man. Listen, back in those days when you were being hated, we had this guy come on and we ambushed you that you stole one of his jokes, and we're so sorry." And I said, "No worries." I go, "Do you have his number?" And they're like, "Yeah. Can we call him on the air live?" And they're like, "You serious?" I'm like, "Yeah, of course. I want to talk to him." So they call him on the air. I go, "I don't want to talk to him until we're on the air." We're on the air. He goes, "Hey, Carlos." I go, "Hey, I just want to know, man. A few years back, these guys say that you were on the air, you were going to ambush me, and you were talking about how I stole your joke. I have no idea who you are. So I just want to know, how could I have accessed your material at that time when the internet wasn't what it is and you probably didn't have anything on the internet? How could I have accessed a joke to take from you?" And he goes, "Oh, I never said that you stole a joke. I just wanted to tell, I just said that I didn't like that one time I saw you perform and you asked people for a standing ovation and they stood up instead of just doing your act." And I'm going, wait, you just, these guys just told me that you said that I stole your joke. Oh, they got it wrong. That's not, are you serious? Mm. And when those moments happen, you either become angry and hateful and vengeful, or you just go, "Wow, that's me." And today, I look at it like this. For comedians today that have been accused of plagiarism, a lot of comics come to their defense now because of me. Because they see, or they saw, what devastation can happen when you go along with it and you don't defend somebody that you... So I paid the price so that other comics don't get crucified the way I was. I was a poster boy for that.
I think that every time you open your mouth, you talk about me. I think that you're secretly in love with me.
And what's weird for me is knowing the legacy that the Comedy Store has, and knowing that you were a child of the Comedy Store. You were brought up by Mitzi. I mean, and that is a huge thing.
In every way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I mean, that's a massive thing. And in a way, because of that incident when Joe Rogan gets on stage with you, and does it essentially then block you out of ever returning to your house if the Comedy Store is your house?
No, I mean, I could go back. I have gone back. I do go. It's my house. I mean, my name, if you drive by the Comedy Store and you are, or you're in one of those tours, just look up. Carlos Mencia is right in the front. I mean, no, I think what happens is you become one or the other. It's those choices in life, and I chose to go like this. I chose to say, okay, I know that I'm not a plagiarist, but comics want to accept that, and that has to be something that I'm doing. So instead of putting it out there and going, it's their fault, I said, okay, why do these comics want to dislike me? Why is it that when somebody in a group of comedians goes, Carlos this, and says something negative, they all go, yes. Yeah, why do they want to believe that? That was my burden to internalize that and go, okay, what is it? And I didn't do drugs, I didn't drink, I didn't smoke, I bypassed that part of being a part of the comedy world. Because that's a huge part of what comedians do. They have a couple of drinks, go in the back, smoke some weed, and talk about whatever. I didn't do that because it just wasn't my thing. I also came from a very negative place. I didn't come from a middle class place or a nice neighborhood where you're like, I'm gonna do comedy. Good for you, Holmes. Man, you could do it, right? Hey, he wants to be a clown. Hey, look at that clown, Mr. Comedy. I mean, I grew up in a place where when you bought a brand new Toyota Corolla, people didn't go, good for you. They're like, oh, look at the dude with the new car, Mr. Toyota. It's like, dude, can you be happy that I have a new car? So when I ended up at the Comedy Store, all these comedians duking it out, intellectually fighting for a spot. I'm funny, you're funny. Dude, I put on my armor. I couldn't deal with going to my neighborhood and having them not believe in me and then coming to a comedy club and me not believing in myself. Dude, I put that armor on. And so I completely understand. I get it. When I became popular, I was in this weird time where before me, if Robin Williams showed up, he could do as much time as he wanted. And none of us were offended. We were blessed to be able to watch him perform. Richard Pryor showed up. We were blessed. I came at a time where millennials kind of started coming into play, and those kids, they're entitled. So they were like, Carlos isn't on the list. Why is he going on? They didn't get it. They're like, yeah, but he has a TV show. So? But he's not on the list? He should call like everybody else. And I'm sitting around going, wait a minute. Are you telling me that for the first 10 years of my career, I got bumped by every major celebrity to ever do stand-up? And now that it's my turn, I can't? I refuse. And that refusal is a big part of, the self-centeredness that came with, and people wanting to go, I don't like that guy. He's out for himself. He bumps me all the time. So I take responsibility for that. And it made me a better person and a better comic. And at the end of the day, I'm not going to be measured by 5 years of my career or 20 or 30. It's going to be 40 or 50. And that's okay. I have a long way to go. A long way to go. If my career was traveling from LA to New York, right now, I'm in Texas.
And so thank you, man.
You're welcome, brother.
All right.
Appreciate it, man.